they work in that landscape doing some other work as well. And they're also a member of the Africa Biodiversity Collaborative Group, or ABCG. ABCG is a coalition of 7 African focused conservation NGOs. As you can see on the screen, AWF is also a member.
Yep, that's it. What does ABCG?
ABCG is all about tackling complex emerging conservation challenges. We draw on member expertise to develop solutions that can involve tools and approaches and emphasize African capacity development to apply those. And we tend to focus on issues where we are better together rather than acting as individual organizations. And these solutions are promoted via forums such as this. And the vision is all about an African continent where biodiversity and better natural resource management are in balance with human empowerment and well-being. And none of this would be possible without the long-standing support of USAID, and to which we are immensely grateful. But enough of the ABCG infomercial. Our speakers today are Vishal Shah. He was the CEO of NRT Trading, and he leverages his extensive business background to empower the local communities. And that background includes an MBA from Wharton Business School and a stint as manager of Campbell in the USA. So he's gone from soup to samburu.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a rare and intriguing transition. Welcome, Vishal. And then we also have Beatrice Lempeira. Sorry about that. Beatrice is the gender lead for NRT. She's a passionate champion for women's rights and leads NRT's initiative to address gender and social inclusion to uplift the communities. She has many years of experience working at the intersection of conservation, indigenous communities, and enterprises. And Beatrice is also on a side hustle, getting a master's degree in anthropology at McGill. Welcome, Beatrice. It's great to have you both. With that, I'll hand it over to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for having us. And we're really honored to present to you, all of you. Before I start, I also want to acknowledge one other guest. We have with us Ann Knapp. Ann Knapp is our long-standing volunteer for NRT Trading and also the outgoing board vice chairperson for NRT Trading. So she's really passionate, and when she heard we're coming to DC, she flew down from Maine to be with us. So welcome to NRT Trading. We're actually going to call ourselves Mashinani Works as soon as the registration is done. I'll tell you more about that. Mashinani means grassroots. So grassroots works. We work in Northern Kenya with the communities. That is a very, very typical everyday scene for myself and my team, talking to communities, working with them to uplift their livelihoods. Northern Kenya, well, all of you, I don't know your levels of intimacy and knowledge about Kenya, but Kenya is really a country of two halves. And we have a half that has been left behind. It's historically marginalized. These are the women and youth of the ASALs. We at Mashinani Works, our mission is to uplift their livelihood with the power of trade and commerce. And I'm going to talk about how that fits into what you all are interested about, which is biodiversity conservation. It's inextricably linked. And we do this because we all know climate change is with us. We want to create environmentally friendly local economies that can diversify the livelihood of our communities to help them cope with climate change, but also to bring peace to natural resource conflicts and alleviate the poverty that is there in general. And we do this primarily by three ways. Number one, we want to bring skills and business acumen to our communities. We want markets to work for our communities in cases where the markets are not existent. We want to develop markets in places where they're there but working inefficiently. We want them to work better. And we want to expand local production and connect it to markets. We work with the community conservancies that comprise Northern Rangelands Trust. Currently, there are 43 member conservancies that stretch from the coastline in Lamu all the way to the border with Uganda. And in fact, NRT is expanding into Uganda now. It's a large area. It's the size of the state of West Virginia in the US. We work with indigenous communities. There are 19 of them, all of very different lineage. They're pastoral in nature, approximately 600,000 people. For those of you who don't know about conservancies, essentially it's a conservation easement on communal land. So the way it manifests itself is when a community comes together, decides they're going to protect the wildlife and let wildlife pass through the landscape, and also together do things to protect the environment for the conservation and for the future of the people. NRT Trading was started 9 years ago in 2014. We are right now a subsidiary of the Northern Rangelands Trust, though there's a separate CEO, which is me, and a separate board of directors. We have been working also with USAID. We are implementing partner for USAID in Kenya, a sub-awardee under NRT, and now we have a direct grant. It's called the Local Work Grants, Uwezo Kaskazini Kenya, which translates into skills in Northern Kenya. That's a 3-year grant. Everybody knows about the ASALs, I presume. 41% of the Earth's land surface. It's not a wasteland. It's actually biodiversity hotspot, though with very little rain. Plant and animal species that have adapted for that environment. Very, very important also with regard to regulating the Earth's climate. If you include the Sahara, which is hyper-ASAL, 60% of Africa's surface, and you may be really surprised, but 89% of Kenya's land surface. Though only 38% of the population live in Kenyan ASALs, and they don't have the political voice, so they have faced historic marginalization. They don't have the votes, and therefore low investment all around historically in infrastructure, education, etc. We did a survey. I had like 20 interns over the COVID year, 2020, and I sent them into the villages. We trained them and gave them a little device to get a snapshot of our families within the landscape. And so we got a snapshot of the pastoralist livelihood in Kenya. Family size was 6, with the largest being 31. There were still about 30 to 40% polygamous families too within the landscape. Everything revolved around livestock. So the sun's energy, with the little rainfall that comes, is converted into something useful by that magic plant we all care about, grass. And the livestock was the way to convert the grass into livelihood through the milk, meat, etc. And so the culture, everyday life revolves around livestock. Average family has 45 sheep and goats, 7 cows, 2 camels, 1 donkey. That's average. In 2020, poorer families have less. I think this number must have changed because we've just come out of a debilitating drought. So probably less than that right now. Yeah. Okay. We asked about educational levels, and it was really shocking. 7 out of 10 adults reported that they'd never been to school, like not stepped into school. Out of the 3 adults that did, few years of primary that were not finished. Actually, the number of people who graduated from high school was very low, and university you could probably count on your hands. So no skills, no education in the landscape. The skills were there, were passed down. They were traditional livestock keeping skills, and that's the reality. And in terms of the money flowing through the landscape, in an average family, if you convert the Kenya shillings into dollars, right now it's $445 per year. On a monthly basis, that's only $40 a month. That is well below the international poverty line, but that's all. Generally, yes, the landscape is poor, but when you look at multi-dimensional poverty, of course, with the cattle and the goats and sheep, they do get the nutrition and everything, what we need to sustain life like that. 60% approximately reported living in temporary households. So the photo you see there, that's a boma. That's a traditional boma. That's a stockade. During the day, the cattle and the goats go out to graze, and at night, they come and sleep with the family within the stockade. When the pasture around that area has dried up, they actually move to a new area where there is better pasture. That's pastoralism for you. However, it's changing because 40%, the flip of that is 40% did report that some sort of permanent structure housing. So there is increasingly more and more, what we call sedentarization or permanent living in our communities. In an area with very little rainfall, only 13% said they had some sort of water tank. And so that shows you the level of hardship that families face in this landscape. We are here with the Africa Biodiversity Collaboration Group. And of course, we all care about biodiversity. Biodiversity conservation is inextricably linked to changing pastoral livelihood. And what's driving the change? There are 2 big factors. The first one, of course, is climate change. We just came out of this year, 5 consecutive rainfall seasons where it rained below historical normals. And what that did is, yes, it rained a little bit, but it dried out very quickly. And it actually resulted in a widespread drought in the Horn of Africa. USAID reported that just in 2022, they spent $310 million in humanitarian relief for communities in Kenya. And so when the drought comes like that, it not only decimates a family's livestock holdings, that brings everybody down, but of course, wildlife is also decimated because of the lack of water and pasture. We are based at Lewa Wildlife Conservancy. Before the drought, there were about 22 to 2,500 buffalo. They now estimate only 400 to 500 are left. And so that creates havoc even for wildlife. Of course, it increases human-wildlife conflict at pasture and water points. Desperate families, turn back to bushmeat trade, cutting down the few trees that are left, increases illegal charcoal, etc. And the other big driver of change is a population growth that's happening in Kenya, in the ASALs of Kenya, certainly all over sub-Saharan Africa. And this creates a lot of pressure to convert land that is kind of free-ranging rangeland into agricultural use and for fodder plantations or for hardier crops like barley and sorghum, etc. And indeed, with the increasing population, even the government of Kenya is increasing a drive to what's called adjudicate land and give it out to families. But for wildlife, that has a huge implication. It leads to loss of habitat and severe degradation of an already kind of degraded landscape, and increases conflict over livestock, cattle raiding, etc., water and pasture points. Actually, now with good cell phone coverage, when it rains in certain areas, the word spreads very fast and everybody converges onto the little pasture that's been generated by the rain, and that becomes a natural resource conflict hotspot. And overall, we still have very, very low human development indicators. They're increasing with increasing government investment, but still overall compared to the rest of Kenya, very low. And certainly compared to world normals, they're very low. And so for women and youth in arid and semi-arid lands, it's difficult. Bringing them out of poverty is difficult. They just have so many headwinds. They're not economically integrated. They live in a remote and harsh natural environment that is prone to climatic risks. There is a skills deficit, complete skills deficit, and conflict over natural resources. NRT Trading started 9 years ago, and we have been tinkering, experimenting, and we've found pathways for the communities, and that's what we're focusing on. We want sustained climate change adaptation. So the next few slides are going to talk about all the programs that we're working on and businesses that we're working on. If it's possible, I want to show the movie, though I'll need help to see how I can do that after this slide. What we're doing is not a one-off thing, and I'm sure you all are aware of that. It's a long journey. It's not a single step. We're working with the most vulnerable and trying to lift them up into a place where they're sustainable. Sustainability means some money in the bank, skills that can give you income when times are hard. It also includes sustainable livestock, and that's the journey we are on. However, the more shocks you get and the more vulnerable you are, the more you keep on sliding back. And so getting out of that cycle of poverty is harder. And so how can we lift up communities from that? I want to show a beadworks movie at this point. I don't know how, let me see if I can do that now. Just a second.
Na kanya kita nano ay beleganya maisha itatu arepata ya saino kuminta ipoki
Beadworks is a business that works with community conservancies in northern Kenya, and our work is basically to work with pastoral women so that they can use their skills to earn an income. We currently work with 1,300 women Our vision is to work with 5,000 across the northern side of Kenya. We have a system that is well organized. The women are able to organize and supervise the whole business. They own it.
There's no sound coming through remotely.
There's no sound coming. They're saying there's no sound coming.
Kasha mnano leng NRT. Amu kenye tangera ini ntamba tukoki. Nye mshara la babala mu. Rangers. Lewa nsobasi. Nye tangera ini mshara ya ASAL. Na kasha mwele. Amu kaya kita nano super dicho leng na shipal taula. Kaya kita tambata yang suku kaya pamagdang kera ini. Kanya ingin kera ini informi. Na yang ingin tambulong karena wisku. Na already kera ini na karis penano ilang sebagai nunggu sel NRT. She's a business leader in our village. She supervises the rest of the network. And she's learned the skill to own the business. We work with customers across the world, like Australia, America, and also local market. It's a business, so we provide what the market needs. We did an assessment and asked our women, what do you do with your money? They will spend their money buying food, clothes, and then now we're trying to help them think about the future. You've said 12,677 shillings, which is basically $126. Using mobile phones, which were not like available in the north, learning to do mobile banking, and all these things are happening across the world.
The ladies have been left behind, so we're trying to empower also them to be leaders.
It's broader than just the beats. It's much more. It's empowerment. It's empowering the women. It's empowering their families. It's empowering the whole community. It's empowering Kenya and putting Kenya on international map. Seeing a piece done by a lady in the northern Kenya being sold in California, it's life-changing.
Great. Can everybody hear us?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes.
Can you see the slides?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, and I don't know if you could hear the sound in the movie, but hope you were able to follow the movie just from the subtitle then.
Yes.
Okay, I'll let Beatrice talk about beadworks.
Yes, thank you, Vishal, and thank you everyone for finding the time to be here with us today. First, I just want to acknowledge and recognize the work of all of you in this group. And it takes me back to when I just finished school, and I remember AWF coming and working with my local community to do conservation work. And through that, we had a conservancy and a banda, and through that income is what enabled me to go to campus. And then after finishing campus, I came to work as a conservancy manager, and I also had a fellowship with CI, which was the Young Indigenous Women Fellowship. And I really just want to recognize the work of all of you and the communities and the role that biodiversity really plays in our communities. I'll now speak about beadworks, and this is something that is really close to my heart. One, because I come from that community. I come from, the villages that you've seen from some of the slides. And because I personally care a lot about inclusion and women and the role that women play when it comes to, conservation, family, and the community at large. At Beadworks, there's a lot of culture, there's a lot of beads among our communities, but we say beadworks with capital works because we've seen, or I have seen, what the work that beads can do to transform lives. And what we've done is we've been working with women, as you can also tell from the video, in the landscape. And we really just go out to the women to meet them where they are. And what that does is it enables women who come from ethnic, traditional communities. And ordinarily, these women don't have a lot of options when it comes to, sources of income. And our life is centered around livestock and who makes the decision about livestock. And so with climate change, what does that do to a household, to a family? And beadworks comes to, play that complementary role and support the families, but also does much more. It gives women an opportunity to earn income, but also support them to be leaders. We have a very organized network of women. We have currently 1,200 across our community conservancies, and the production is village-based. It allows the women to, do their normal life, but also earn income at household level. And we have what we call the star leaders, and these are local leaders who've not only supported their women to earn extra sources of income, but also have become champions to get to the next level of wanting to join the conservancy boards. We've become leader champions who can also speak to their county governments. And I have seen a transformation where it's not just about the money, it's about giving those who are ordinarily not involved in conservation spaces through the economics, the power to speak up, the power to contribute. And whereas you can see the numbers, I like to say it's much more. It's more than just the beads. It's a movement and a network that we are creating where we are bringing women on board to contribute to conservation. And we're really, if you think of Northern Kenya, we are, I'll say, the biggest cooperative that is organizing women to come and do business, but also talk about all these other societal issues. And as explained in the video, our women will spend that money on the immediate needs, food and all that. So what happens? If you think of the communities or the landscape that we operate in, it's far away from the main cities. It's far away from, Nairobi. For those of you who know Nairobi, they're about over, 300 kilometers and all that. So what happens? So through the inspiration and the work we've done with beadworks, we are thinking about financial inclusion more broadly, more than the beads. And it's not just about the women, it's about the morans or the youth and also the men. And we formed something called a savings and credit, which is a SACCO. We call it a SACCO. It's a government recognized membership institution to give women and the community alternatives to be able to save money through a financial system and not necessarily on what will traditionally happen with livestock, with climate change, with all the insecurities, with all the conflicts that is happening. You're giving an alternative option. And so far we have over 5,000 members, and women are like almost 70% of that group. And so if you think of what is happening is you're taking the most vulnerable to the next level through financial inclusion. We are working and training and journeying with these communities to even have the confidence to take loans. And up to 1.3 billion loans have been issued. You start with a smaller loan like 250, and then you repay that and graduate to the next level. And what we've also seen is that the repayment is picking up because they're coming to understand the whole financial dynamic. And this also plays out to, what happens in the landscape. If we invest and provide alternatives, then we are trying to resolve the dynamics of degradation and all other issues. They're not only borrowing loans, they're also saving. So it's a journey. It will take time because our connectivity to livestock and our way of life it's also an emotional process, but it's a journey that has begun. Yeah, so I'll hand over to Vishal to speak more about what we are doing with the youth and other programs.
We started this journey, and just to emphasize, I don't know how many of you come to Kenya and specifically Northern Kenya, but we have a bank in a small town called Isiolo, a few bank branches, and then you drive for about 300 kilometers and there's nothing until you get to Marsabit town, and maybe there are a few bank branches there. So it's in that landscape that we're trying to bring financial services, and the commercial banks will not go there because the last mile delivery for them is too expensive. They don't want to touch, and also the credit worthiness of such customers for them. So it's in that environment we're trying to create a business environment. When we started giving out this microfinance loans to communities, of course, what does a community member who gets such a loan do with $250? Most revert to what they know, which is, let me buy more goats or things like that. So we realized that we also need to bring in an element of education into it. First, we started with a 2-day course, financial literacy, life skills, a little bit of business skills. And we realized that much more was needed. And now what we have done is we have created actually a curriculum that is contextualized to the landscape, and we're teaching that, and it's a 4-modular curriculum, and we're developing entrepreneurs on the ground. Of course, not everybody who gets business, but there are those who are like the movers and shakers in the community. We want them to be the employers of the future, and we're coaching and mentoring them to develop those local economies. What we found is that we've been able to grow business to 3 times the level. Of course, these numbers, when you compare these numbers to Washington, D.C., these are low, but in that landscape, it makes a big deal in those villages. One of the big things we discovered is communities are embracing technology, and they're buying all the trappings that we are so used to. They're buying motorcycles, they're buying mobile phones. The little money that they have, they'll sell a few goats and buy a mobile phone. However, when the mobile phone breaks down or when the motorcycle breaks down, there's no one to fix it. There are no skills in that village. So then they have to sell more goats and sell more cows and get that motorcycle all the way to a town and get a mechanic there to fix it. And so the little money that's in the village shrinks even further. So there was a hunger to learn skills. However, there are like big barriers, like to how do you even bring skills to the landscape? The first big barrier is to go and learn something, you got to go to a town because that's where all the colleges are. How are you going to go to a town when you don't have anywhere to live? You don't have the means to put yourself up in the town for even a few months. The second big barrier is the Kenyan government system. The minimum to enter into even a vocational training was primary school certificate. Most of the community members and youth we're dealing with are illiterate. They haven't ever been to school. And so that's a real impasse that's held back the whole area for decades. But we managed to get through a breakthrough because one of the principals of the Vocational Training Institute decided to take a risk with us. We sent down the trainers into the village. We sent all the equipment into the village. We held a class for 3 months under the trees, and it was a huge success when they sent the assessors. Actually, the most illiterate, like who didn't have any opportunity, were the most hungriest because they really wanted to learn skills that could help them earn income. And there was such a big success that word spread through the landscape. And so now we have this Ujuzi Manyatani, and everywhere I go into the field, everybody's always saying, we want Ujuzi Manyatani, we want Ujuzi Manyatani. We managed to graduate 782 women and youth, but the demand is so huge. And the great thing about this is we talk to the community and they're learning things that can translate into immediate income. And that's creates the diversification, because when all your goat have died in the drought, you still, where do you turn for income so that you can at least buy the basic necessities? We did a survey and we found that the graduates are earning $80 a month, coming out with the skills, and they're able to apply the skills in the landscape. We now have a slew of 9 different courses we offer, and the government is so interested that we have already an MOU with National Industrial Training Authority of Kenya on this. Livestock is the #1 economy of the ASALs. There's huge opportunity in livestock, but there are huge problems in livestock. Yesterday, I heard a figure that $1 billion worth of livestock moves through the ASALs. Indeed, NRT Trading, with help of TNC, ran a livestock to market business. We moved more than $6 million worth of livestock from community conservancies to commercial markets, which we have now since graduated. We've stopped doing it because things have changed in the landscape. But we realized from the survey we did that it was reported that 96% of respondents said that never, ever had any livestock training. And so that led us to start a livestock farmer field school. It's called Ufugaji Bora Mashinani, which means better livestock herders at the grassroots. We did a baseline. We found out what skill gaps there are, and using that baseline, we developed a curriculum with government, a specialized modular curriculum that we go out into the villages and teach. Right now, we have 300 livestock keepers enrolled in that curriculum. And we're already seeing improvements in the way they're thinking about fodder planning, animal health decision-making, breed selection. It's actually a really cool curriculum. It has rangeland management, it has leadership, it has climate change, it has animal health, breeding, supplementary feeding, etc., etc. And we've created livestock marketing associations on the ground at the conservancies, 10 of them in 10 conservancies. 50% of them are under female leadership. Of course, tourism has a huge potential for the landscape. Our communities live a lifestyle that is so compatible with tourism. The landscape is stunning. And so we've been developing tourism, and tourism can bring in really good paying jobs for our communities. We now have 4 community-owned banda operations. So banda is a Kiswahili word. It kind of loosely translates to chalet. It's a self-help concept. We also have 1 high-end lodge that's run by a community, and that brings really good income into the landscape. We're using our investment from our donors to train board members. All of us in this room and whoever's probably called in are so used to traveling around and checking in and out of hotels. But for conservancy members who've not got that exposure, who never traveled out of where they live, it's really important to bring them along and make them understand tourism. And we're also training youth in the hospitality trades. We've got partnerships with hotels, and we send them for 3-month training so that they can get tourism jobs. And this complements the higher end investor-led tourism in the landscape, which is also bringing very good income into our communities. My audience here are all experts, and same with the online experts. You know, this is a hard journey, and we have been experimenting and fine tuning. We're now got initiatives and businesses that are having sustained empowerment. It's transforming lives, and I invite you to come to Northern Kenya to come and visit the villages, and you can see how people are moving ahead. And we've lined up all our interventions to lift people along this economic ladder. And of course, what we're doing is not new. It's being done. There's a lot of academic research on it. So everything has been corroborated. I guess that the newest thing is the vocational training, which is a big breakthrough for the landscape. We really thank our distinguished donors. Some of you are present in these meetings. We don't take it for granted, especially for a young organization like NRT Trading, which was formed as an offshoot of NRT, we have a grant that is helping to develop the capability and capacity of the organization. And, for the 9 quick years we've been in operation, and NEP here sitting with us actually started the company, we've come a long way, and we have mechanisms, programs, businesses deployed into the landscape that have made a huge difference. We don't want to stop there. Our goals are very ambitious. We want to have 10,000 people getting microfinance and credit. We want to have 5,000 people with vocational training just in the next few years. Of course, the need is well beyond that, and so we are ready. We want to get to more women and youth. We want to empower more women and youth. Engage with us, invest in us to get to more women and youth. We want to build local leaders. We have over here Beatrice, who was your investment, AWF and CI. We want to build more leaders like that, like Beatrice in the landscape. But that's going to happen in the landscape. It's not going to happen far away from the landscape. Help us enhance our critical capabilities. M&E, thought leadership, comms, we've come a long way. Everybody over here knows without M&E and without being able to showcase, it's very hard to get traction and also get funding. We want to take what we're doing and bring it together under this concept of a hub, a climate adaptation hub. Our communities are right at the edge. I mean, climate change is affecting them. I mean, it's already started affecting them in a big way. They don't have insurance plans or homeowners insurance or all that government insurance that are there in developed countries. When climate change hits them, they basically will they starve. I mean, there's no food. And so there is an urgency to address this. And we also want to have a center of excellence that we want to develop in northern Kenya, where communities can come and enhance their skills further. The only way that's going to happen is further skills, further business, furthering local economies, and that will help wildlife conservation too. Because if communities are in a downward spiral, the wildlife is not going to be in an upward spiral. It's linked. So we want to have healthy communities and healthy wildlife and healthy children and healthy environment. We want the biodiversity to thrive. And so I'll stop with that. Thank you very much, everyone, for your attention on this afternoon. Whoever is online, please follow us. If you go to Northern Rangelands Trust Trading, we have LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. I have a really young team churning out movies every month. Follow us so you can be on the ground with us. And yeah, I'll open it up from there. This is a photo from the last Women's Leadership Conference we held. We're now trying to do annual leadership conferences where women come and talk about all the issues that they face. Yeah, we can talk more about it. I see there's already a hand up online, so I think I'll stop there and we can have a conversation now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vishal and Beatrice. Wonderful presentations. You guys have clearly been very impactful for the inhabitants of that landscape. And yeah, open it up to questions in the room first.
Maybe so we can see the people.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
said the same thing.
I can close the presentation and there you go. And how do I make this big?
All the way over on the left.
Just open up the
Green
chat.
dot. Yeah, the green dot at the top left. There you go.
To the left. Yeah, there you go.
Great. So there's a question about talk about role and partnerships with national and county governments, particularly on enabling infrastructure incentives, etc. Great, I can start on that. One of the main things that we've done as a company is align our staff to the county governments. So every county government has a liaison staff that calls in on county governments. We actually county governments have something called CIDP, County Integrated Development Plan, and so we go and input into that. Whenever we have kind of mid-year reviews, we make sure we invite all the county government officials to come for the mid-year reviews. And so that's the way we drive county government engagement. As far as a national government, we just had a new government come in. And so we're in the process of engaging national government, but we've already had, for example, Minister of the Cabinet Secretary for Tourism and Wildlife come and visit us, and the principal secretaries, etc. So we are on the radar, and we have aligned ourselves also to kind of the manifesto of the incoming government, and aligning all our programs to what they want to achieve for the people of Kenya.
I think, just reinforcing the education part of this in terms of working through the educational system to get them out. These are key partnerships in getting stuff going on the ground. And even in the livestock with the animal health officers and stuff, making sure that we are connected, because otherwise it's not good.
Depending on the kind of level of the meeting, if it's a village level meeting, we'll invite the MCA, which is the member of the county assembly. We'll invite the chief. If it's more of a county level meeting, we'll make sure we invite, the counties have these kind of ministers they call chief economic officer or something like that, CECs. We invite those. So we make sure we're engaging with government structures all along the way when we're implementing.
And also that happens during our co-creation processes.
Yes.
When we're developing new programs, we invite the relevant government department to co-create with us.
There's another question. Is it possible to share the record of all presentations? So we have to make sure that we can share this presentation. I think Kimberly is here. Thank you, Kimberly, for all your help with setting this up, but you can share this presentation.
Yeah, totally happy to. And I do have a question, but I know that Rubina raised her hand, so maybe she can ask her question. I don't know. Can you hear me pretty well?
Yes, I can, Kimberly. Thank
Okay.
Vishal Beatrice kusema shukuru sana kutoka Kenya. Sababu niko hapo Nairobi, and I'm looking forward to meeting you both when you return to Kenya. I just have one question. First of all, well done. I mean, bravo. I think this is absolutely excellent. My concern is basically this. As we know, the majority of Kenyan youth living in the remote areas in Kenya are looking forward to one thing, finding jobs and moving to the city. My question to you is, how are you going to prevent after skills training youth that now have those new skills leaving the area and moving to urban areas like Nairobi and other cities? Because there is nothing else to do. So those new skills give them the opportunity to leave. How are you preventing that? Over.
Thank you. I'll give you my perspective on it. Beatrice, you can give your perspective even if it conflicts mine. But my view on this is actually that number one, the Kenya government is investing a lot in infrastructure now. They are building roads finally and building power lines, etc. If we don't give our youth the skills to get the jobs to build that infrastructure, what's going to happen is, quote unquote, outsiders, as in, Kenyans from southern Kenya are going to come and get those jobs. And that's actually going to cause more friction. Secondly, I actually don't think that if there is going to be urbanization because the population has grown a lot, and as you said, there's a youth bulge now. What are the youth going to do? Many will be forced to move into towns, and that already happened with the drought. Like so many families had to move into Marsabit town just to get food aid, and so that is a trend that's already happening. We actually, the skills will help them from further falling down into the fringes, because whether they're in rural areas or urban areas, without skills, like all of us got skills and got educated, that's why we are all here. Without skills, what will our youth do? But we have to contextualize the skills so that they can also thrive in the rural environment. And that's where modern technical skills, but also modern livestock keeping skills come into play, so that if they see a future in the rural area where they can have a thriving livestock economy, there is no need to move into urban areas. And actually, youth don't really want to move into urban areas, at least the youth from our communities. But we have to create pathways for them where they can be productive for their life, even in the rural areas. So that's my take on that. I don't know if you agree or disagree, Beatrice.
I think I agree with you, Vishal, because the reality is if we don't prepare the youth to what is happening, then there's going to be problems. We already have problems of the youth who are morons, and now there are no livestock to herd. So what happens? We'll get a gun and go try steal. And so in essence, what we are trying to do is, okay, we have all these morons who would otherwise be herding, but now they don't have livestock. Prepare them with additional skills. We have youth within the community landscape. How can we prepare them to take advantage and leverage on the investment that the government and other stakeholders are putting in the landscape? So I agree with you.
Thank you. Over to you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Ruby. First, I want to say how wonderful a presentation this was. Thank you so much, Vishal and Beatrice. It's really exciting to hear about all of the work of NRT Trading. And it's really, really nice that you came down, I guess, from Maine. It's been a long time since I've seen your face. So yeah, I had a question, maybe this is mostly for Beatrice, about the role of women in governance and, you know, how it has changed over the years, especially perhaps if it's been influenced by women's roles in the beadworks enterprise. So would love to hear your thoughts on that and how that has evolved over the 10 years or so.
Yeah, thank you. I will speak of two aspects. We've seen women moving from just doing beadworks to really taking up more leadership roles at the Conservancy. So I will say that the women coming together to do business has given them the space to really talk about all the other governance aspects. And an example is there was a moment Kalama Conservancy had an election, and all the women were like, we want Mama Nabiki to represent us in the board. And this is because she's done such a great work managing the beadworks. That is one aspect. The other thing that is happening is within the Kenyan law, we have the 2/3 gender rule. So with the conservancies and the communities that are transitioning to community land, the constitution has enabled the women to be in those spaces. But what is happening is you have women who go and be part of the conservancy board, but do not necessarily understand what that means. They're just there. And so we come in through our gender and women empowerment programs to really take them to the next level, do a lot of leadership and management trainings, have sessions where we come together, network, and leverage on that. And so we are creating women who really understand what a conservancy is, what is the role of, what does it mean to be a board member? What does it mean to be in a finance committee? And so we are leveraging on various programming, beadworks, peace, rangelands, and also investing more in leadership and exposure and networking. Again, taking into consideration our cultural dynamics. It's very patriarchal society. So one woman just standing there, you can really be bullied not to just give up. because we've had scenarios where a woman was elected and the husband was like, choose, it's either the board or home. So she had to give up her role. And so we are creating this network where women have support systems. So we call them the mama groups and the caucus women groups, just to create a network of women in conservation, because they deserve and it's their right.
Good. And I'm going to say one thing on this.
Yes.
I think it is the other thing to add is that I think we do see that the women who have risen up through the system, so that are now star beaters. So, you know, when I started 10 years ago, there was no such thing as a star beater, and it was just like, it's pretty much chaos on the ground. And NRT Trading at that time was handling most of the intellectual work. That's been pushed out, and the creation of star beaters over the last 10 years has almost risen. You know, there's this class of 125, 150 women who have a history of learning empowerment and exercising empowerment, and then they start bringing they're the heads of the mama groups, for example. So over time, you know, the takeaway that I've had is that it's like the earned income that if you are a woman who's earned income with your hands, it's yours, and it provides you with a firmer basis for exerting your influence than a handout. So if you're getting charity, your husband's a lot more likely to say, give it to me and win. If you've earned it, they're going to say, no, this is mine. So I think the creation by Beatrice and her colleagues of this whole star beater system is actually transforming the landscape in a way that I never would have understood. It's like the Avon system, frankly. And you can think about what that's done for women empowerment, you know, around the world. Avon, Tupperware, all these kind of places, this is what they're doing. Powerful stuff.
Thank you so much.
There's some questions on the chat. Number one, are the new small business vetted to ensure they're climate friendly, low greenhouse emissions from livestock, for example, as well as biodiversity compatible? Number two, do you find that program participants eventually abandon pastoralism altogether, or do they engage in alternative livelihoods in addition to being pastoralists? What is the future of pastoralism in ASALs in the face of climate change? Thank you. These are good, tough questions.
You have a week.
Yeah. I mean, number one, are they vetted? I mean, they're vetted in the sense that before we give out microfinance loans, we talk to them about what their plans are, and we do steer them to make sure that they're not doing something that is environmentally destructive. I mean, this question about low greenhouse emissions is, I mean, you know, we're not running massive feedlots, or nobody has massive feedlots in northern Kenya like that. The few livestock that they have are part, actually they're part of family. They consider them part of family. They sleep with them at night in the same boma. So it is the livelihood. So we are not at a place, honestly, where we have such a conversation about greenhouse emissions with our communities, because they're right at the edge of survival. The question about pastoralism, I'll give you my perspective. I think Beatrice can either corroborate or give her perspective. I think pastoralism is in transition, as we said. What I have noticed is that the bond between livestock and communities is so strong that it's not that communities are going to abandon livestock, but diversification creates an economic footstool that decreases reliance on livestock, and that's the direction we want to take. I think certainly for the poorest of families where they don't even have enough livestock, economic diversification and this alternative income is the future, because that's the only way that they're going to survive and thrive. We are making slow headway towards directing pastoralism into a more environmentally sustainable future, trying to bring the thinking about, smaller, healthier herds. It's not as easy as explaining it to, a sophisticated audience like yourselves, because that bond with livestock and families is so strong. So that's what we're trying to do. I don't know if Anne and Beatrice, you want to chime in?
I'm just trying. So we went to a conference last year that was talking about, and there were a couple of people presenting that had developed strategies for greenhouse-free cattle raising, and it was essentially fewer fatter cows, and essentially having healthier herds, smaller herds that are in kind of in balance with the environment. And that's pretty much what NRT Trading or Mashinani Works livestock Ufugaji Bora Mashinani is about. So
Yes.
we are progressing that.
Do you have a perspective?
Yeah, the future of what is the future of pastoralism? I will say that it's changing. I don't think it's going to end like just overnight. It's definitely going to change because, as already been said, our lives and our land is really connected to the livestock. And so what happens to that land, I feel like we'll still keep livestock. The only dynamic is how are we doing it? Maybe it's fewer and healthier. Maybe it's instead of, me keeping all my livestock for the whole year, have them for a few months, sell them, more planned and more realistic to the changing climate and the changing way of life. Because again, myself have a different perspective of livestock than my mother. And I'm sure my children will see livestock differently. So also accepting that generational attachment and perspective about livestock is happening, is affecting, but all I know it's not something that is changing tomorrow. It's taking time for sure.
There's another question about elaboration on climate adaptation hubs and focus on the climate adaptation aspect. All that we are doing right now, which we have presented to you, we would like to take that into and focus it around communities. Right now, if you are a young man or a woman in a village in northern Kenya, and you want to uplift yourself and empower yourself, you realize that the world's changing. More than half your goats died in the last drought. You want to change. You realize you have to change, right? But where do you go? Where do you go for those services, and how do you access climate adaptation? There is nothing out there. So what we want to create is that, go to mechanism, and it could be a place-based mechanism in the communities where communities right there at the bottom, of that so-called pyramid, have a place to go and get access to services, skills, mentorship, and that includes, learning about how to manage the livestock better. It could mean learning about how to do business and get microfinance loans. It could be access to government services. So last government of Kenya did a huge drive all across the country for our national health insurance system. That's kind of like Medicaid. And but did it get down to the villages? No, because government services don't get there. Could you have a focal point where community members can enroll for the NHIF program? So it's basically bringing that into focus, and it complements the conservancies, because the conservancies were formed with a focus on conservation, and it's been a great success. And now we can actually use the conservancy structure also to deliver all these adaptation services that will be very critical for our communities. So that's the concept around climate adaptation hubs. It's something that is a concept. I hope I have excited you enough, and if I have, please reach out, and we'd love to partner with any of you to take that forward and even start a pilot on that. In terms of the regional enterprise catalyst hub, we in an area that has no colleges, it has no banks, it has none of the services, we want to have a center where communities can come and get guidance, get more skills. For the women, it can be a refuge for the women. We want to have a tourism desk. We want to have a front office for our savings and credit cooperative. We want to have classrooms. We want to have vocational training for further vocational training from what they got from the villages. And so it's this concept for a kind of a center of excellence / academy / offices / volunteer housing. And it's on the highway going to northern Kenya. We already managed to secure 20 acres of land, and we fenced it, and we've actually even sunk a water hole. So it's that journey has started. We're developing that further. So that's that concept for the enterprise catalyst hub. Thank you.
Did you want, I also have one other comment on this thing. So just on the climate change, the concept of a rural hub is not a new one. And what I've always found interesting about working in Kenya is that, you know, you can look at other places in the world that have gone through this, even the United States being a key one. And it's not like back in the day, we didn't have a lot of degraded landscapes on the plains with entire cultures that were wedded to either, you know, cattle or sheep ranching. And a lot of those places have gone through some, you know, climate smart kind of adaptation. And they use rural development hubs, these rural organizations that are place-based, understand the people, who can bring in the key things to change, have been critical. The Aspen Institute did a big study on this, that if you look at the healthy US rural economies have gone through this, almost every single one of them has a rural development hub, very similar to what Vishal's talking about. So these are tried and true in all kinds of other places in the world. There's no reason to think that they wouldn't, but that's also not what's needed here. So I'm always mystified, but it's like we can look at what's worked in other places. This is one. So anyway, it works here, and it works in many other places in the world.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. I guess there are no more questions.
Anybody got a question here?
I have one question, actually. I'm curious to learn a little bit more about it related to the extension work and the enterprise work that you guys done, which is clearly incredibly impactful and beneficial economically. Like, how is that work transforming the stewardship of the land? Like, for example, with pastoralism, are the effort to introduce like grading rotations or to avoid degradation of the land, and on tourism? In many cases, conservancies might try to keep some portion of the community's land open for safaris, and that allows space for wildlife and so on. So yeah, if you could comment on that, and maybe this is where like the monitoring and evaluation can come in to supply that kind of evidence base around that in due course.
Yeah. It all works in concert, so nothing works in its own kind of tower or like so. We have like under the umbrella of Northern Rangelands Trust, we have 43 conservancies. There are 2 more kind of waiting to be, and of course it's a spectrum. And when you look at the conservancies that are doing really well, they have a few things that number one, they've had like many years to develop. So some of our more successful conservancies are the older ones, like Kalama, Ilengwesi, Westgate, etc. And so the conservancy governance structure has evolved over time and has become better and better with every year. Yes, there's backsliding, but overall, and then when you combine for these conservancies, empowerment programs at the household level, the income from the tourism, and the effect that it has on the community in terms of community understanding that tourism benefits us, and kids get bursaries and kids get to go to college. Combine that with investment into grazing management that is primarily done by NRT and the Rangelands Department. And 14 of the conservancies are part of a soil carbon project that is also earning them income. So all this works in concert to uplift communities and conservancies. And there is a market improvement in many of the conservancies. And certainly, if you talk of it from a scientific perspective, like we were able to also generate carbon credits and sell them. And so it process kind of sequestering carbon into the landscape. So it's a multidimensional intervention that is required to achieve this, and a lot of work.
Sure.
Yeah. So basically, the entry point is a community conservancy. So conservation and biodiversity plays a critical role, and everything else we're doing is to make sure that we succeed with that.
Thank you. Any other questions here online?
We're going. Yeah, I'll write down your email and email you tonight.
Excellent. With that, I think we can close, and thank you once again, Vishal and Beatrice, and everyone for attending. Bravo.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Sapsana.
And welcome to Northern Kenya. You're always welcome to come see the work for yourself. There's nothing like that, meeting communities and seeing the landscape. So you're always all welcome. Thank you very much.
That's Saham Jema, Beatrice, and Vishal.
Thank you.
Asante.